kind of joke, like I haven't met a process in a business that I can't teach to AI. Like I literally have not met something I can't do that.
That's Rachel Woods, and she's about to blow your mind about what's possible with AI in business.
One of the most common pitfalls is people will have that implementer role also be the AI operator role, but most likely your implementation person is going to be so in the technical weeds and details that they might miss out on the process.
She's discovered that the most valuable role in AI transformation is not what you think.
Again, if you're process-oriented, like project manager type that likes AI, this is like your moment to shine because this is such a needed skill.
Hey everyone, I'm here today with Rachel Woods, who I consider one of the absolute leading experts on what I think is going to be an incredibly important field of AI, which is AI ops, AI operations. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, so we've spent now a few days together at an entrepreneurial retreat and mastermind. And there's so many fascinating, I have just a list here of frameworks and concepts and stories and projects you're working on. First, start with a bit about your background and how you came to AI ops.
Zooming back a bit in my career, I started in AI almost a decade ago and was lucky to be exposed to this flavor of AI that's kind of underlying behind ChatGPT. And my mind was blown then. And so I've kind of stayed involved in language models and AI over the last several years. I started at Facebook and their AI research team, and then was able to do different AI stuff at tech startups. Fast forward now, I make content online. I run a community called the AI Exchange, and we have an agency doing all this stuff around AI.
Yeah, I'm a proud, loyal member of the AI Exchange. It's one of the just handful of sources of like knowledge and community around AI that I really trust and look to. So thank you for creating that platform.
Well, the people in there are incredible. So yeah.
What I see in your background is that you were very early to this field that is now kind of taking over the world. What made you decide, out of all the little sub fields and avenues you could have gone down, what is it about operations, or how did you even find out and enter like the niche of operations?
So I feel like it was just out of my own pain, because anybody who's run a business or been an entrepreneur is like, the hardest thing is just running the business, scaling the business, getting everything to like operate well. Like, you know, it's easier to have ideas, but then when the rubber meets the road, like how well you can execute is where the value gets created. And so I've been constantly applying AI to basically go and do processes and do operations once I defined them. And that kind of just became this like hook for me, right? Where like, if I could define what I wanted done, if I could define how I wanted my business to run, then I could get AI to go run it that way, operate it that way. And that's just been the path we've been on since.
So I'm curious, like how does your mind work? Let's say pre-AI operations, did that come naturally to you? Did it make sense, or did you personally have a lot of trouble with it?
I feel like it's just the way my brain works. Yeah. I've had people say, Rachel, you just seem to think like an AI. And I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing, but I've heard it from multiple people. So, but what's been really incredible is I feel like that's just the like intuitive way that I look at problems. But then so much of our work has been on how to bubble that up into stuff that's usable for everyone to have some of the mindset shifts and some of the ways of looking at things a little bit differently, so that they can start using AI in this way, right? Where you don't have to always be the one doing the work you define or doing the processes you define. Like AI can go and actually run that a lot.
Yeah. So how do you, if you had to train someone to see the world like an AI, like it sounds like you do, or think about problems or come up with solutions like an AI, how do you do that? Or how did you learn that way of seeing and thinking? Where does that come from?
So this is one of the nerdy parts for sure. Because at its core, what these language models are doing is they have converted words into numbers and learned patterns of how all of those words fit together, so that when you give it a prompt, it's predicting what the next most likely word and the next word and the next word should be based on everything that it's learned. And so even if you can kind of start to really conceptualize that, things get a lot easier for you to think about, well, if I put these words in, is that going to be am I going to be most likely to get the words that I want back? Another crazy analogy, this I learned a long time ago when I first got exposed to this tech, and it's kind of a simple one, but actually, if you take the word king and you subtract the word man and you add the word woman, you roughly get the word queen in these like language models and the way that they think, because it's just all numbers and patterns and math and stuff. So you don't need to know like that so deeply to get value out of stuff. But the more that we've seen people slow down and try to kind of just think about what the AI is doing, then yeah, you can get, I mean, really incredible results. I mean, my favorite way to think about AI is it's just like thinking about people and like working with people.
I've noticed this is one of your like go-to frames, and it's it's surprising how powerful it is, isn't it? Which tells me we really don't think of it that way.
Yeah, well, like there's so many pitfalls or struggles that people have with AI, but if you look at people's experience managing people, hiring people, working with people, creating processes for people, those same struggles are also in that. And it makes sense in a way because AI is trained off of people and what the words we've written, right?
Yeah. It also speaks to the difficulty of it, which is it's not just a switch that you flip. There's training and design and strategy and all these things, which you expect of people because we know people are complicated, but then somehow we think AI is going to be not complicated.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite analogies is like, I think especially someone new to building a business or new to building a team thinks like, oh, I have a marketing problem. I'm going to go hire a CMO at a Fortune, 100 company to now be my marketer for my small business. Like you kind of think about, or you look for the easy magic pill solution to your problem. But anybody who's tried to hire people, like, it's so much more complicated than just that. Like,
Oh my gosh.
you have to think about, okay, what's the level of experience you actually need? What are the, jobs you need them to do? What's your specific business challenges? Like, and then, especially the more you map that stuff out, the more you get specific on the job you want someone to do, usually have a much higher chance of being successful. And that's the same thing with AI. The more specific you get with your prompt, the much higher chance it has at giving you an output that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. People tend to just not put in all that preparation and planning and thinking, go straight to the tool and then blame the tool for its failings.
Just like hiring the CMO. The CMO maybe doesn't fix the problem because they're not magic. And then they blame the CMO for the problems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard we were talking last night and someone reported something that you had said, which was like, when people say, oh, how are you using AI in your business? That you're just like, that question doesn't even make sense. It's like asking, hey, how are you using people in your business?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I see them as so similar because there's so many flavors of AI, even outside of just like ChatGPT is technically just one flavor of AI. There's tons of other flavors. And then inside ChatGPT, you have so many different ways and techniques and everything that you can use it, different tasks, different prompts, different all this stuff. So yeah.
What do you think are the main ways they're different?
Between AI and people? I think that something I come back to a lot as being something I don't see being replaced is that people have this innate ability to connect with each other and have things around trust and relatability and creativity. Like there's just a lot that comes out of humans connecting to each other. And so far that's something that AI can't do, right? That human to human connection. But outside of that, I mean, there's a lot. I kind of joke, like I haven't met a process in a business that I can't teach to AI. Like I literally have not met something I can't do that with yet. Because I think about it like if I were to train a person to do this, how detailed would I need to get? And when you do that, you get to the place where AI can actually do it. Yeah. And that's what AI operations is to me, ultimately, right?
Is what?
Is like getting down to where you're so specifically designing how you want AI to operate in your business. You're making the processes, you're defining the instructions. And then once you do that, you can unlock so much.
So one of the most fascinating ideas you have is actually, ironically, a human role, which is AI operators. How would you explain what they are?
So I'll start with the misconception people have, which is that one person in your company should be the one in charge of implementing, or even that everybody should learn the same ways to think about AI in a company. What we've actually found with all of our the businesses we work with and our clients is that everyone needs to have some base level of AI and lean in and everything, of course. But there are 3 roles that if you set up and really codify, or like 3 hats, you get to the place where you're able to just start implementing AI so much faster in your business. Those 3 roles are an AI visionary, so somebody who's setting the strategy and really deciding what should be worked on. The AI implementer, which is the technical person plugging the things together. My favorite term, handling the technical underpants of AI. But the key role is actually this AI operator, which we define as basically the kind of like operationally minded, process minded person who is going to kind of be the shepherd of AI coming into a business, defining the processes with the team, and kind of running the execution of getting AI to start doing that work. And that's a role that we've seen just once the teams we work with implement or have that person really lean in and take that hat, they're able to do so much more with AI so much more quickly. Especially if you want to get AI to do processes, having like a process person at the helm will really help with that.
This is amazing. So first, let's talk about the other 2 roles. So the AI visionary is, like you mentioned, the case of the founder of the company or the CEO who's like, I'm personally going to lead the charge into AI, and that's not the best approach, right?
Right, because that person doesn't have the time usually to really shepherd this, adoption and process. But they're so important because if you don't have that buy-in and that excitement, then you're not going to get off of, step 0, right?
Would it be, I'm just curious, if you could choose anyone in an organization to be the visionary, is the person at the top the best person, or just the most common person that does that?
I'd say usually it needs to be someone at an executive level. Depending on the organization, maybe VP level, but in a small company, it's usually the owner. And in maybe a medium-sized company, we see a lot of COO. So again, someone that knows where you want to go with AI in your processes and your operations, but isn't the one who's that driving force for the specific projects.
So someone with some authority, some leadership, they need to be a kind of a visionary type, it sounds like. Okay, interesting. So it depends on the business size. What about the implementer? What kind of person or role does that tend to be?
So again, depends on the company and also how complex they want to go with the AI stuff they're setting up. It could be as simple as someone who's really good at writing prompts, could be that implementer on your team. Other teams that want to do more advanced stuff around AI automation might be an automation engineer or an automation person. Or at bigger companies, sometimes it's actually kind of a traditional engineering role that's doing that implementation stuff. Yeah.
So it sounds like someone more left-brained, analytical, maybe a technical background, something like that.
Yeah. And again, it depends on how complex you want to be in your the projects that you do. I always recommend starting off with just the basics, and you can always decide how much more technical complexity you need to add in from there.
Yeah, that's great advice. I tried recently to make a Claude project that could write for me, write like me. And then I realized as I'm experimenting, I actually have many kinds of writing. So let me just do long form blogging. And then within that, as I'm experimenting, I realized, there's actually like still a dozen kinds of long form blogging. Let me just do long form summaries of books as blog posts. And that's what I'm iterating on now. And it's still in a way too wide. There's actually like so many little branches of the decision chart that exists, I guess, in some form in my mind.
Totally. I mean, that's what operational thinking is, right? Is that breaking down of processes until they're in like small enough steps, small enough components Because what you're doing, if you tried to teach someone how to do it the way that you do it, I guarantee you would end up going through the same steps, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool.
It's true. And I'm the thing that's fascinating, because that all sounds like a lot of time, and it is, but I'm also learning so much about my writing process. I'm learning more about how I write than I ever knew before.
I'm curious, what's been the most surprising thing that you've learned from breaking everything down in that detail?
You know what I think it is? I'm uncovering one after another. I seem to have like literally hundreds of like, how to call them, I guess, like rules of thumb. Really simple little rules, often binary. Do this, don't do that, or choose between A and B, or sometimes it's like 3 things or 4 things. So little, like tiny, stupidly mundane things like only state each idea one time. Like, because I noticed the AI would repeat them, which ironically is what we're taught in school. You know, say what you're going to say it, and then say what you said. Like reinforcement through repetition. But I think from writing on the internet, where you have to catch their attention and then maintain it, so everything has to be so compressed and tight, I don't have time or space to mention an idea more than once. So I just go from one to the next to the next to the next. And I had to teach it that rule of thumb.
Yeah, because the way that you do that type of work is different than the average generic way that these models have learned from. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, if you want it to do work your way, you have to get to the level of specificity.
Okay, so the tech implementer, is there anything else about that role? Is there anyone you found shouldn't play that role, or can someone be so technical that they're and like not open-minded enough that they can't fulfill that role? Like, what have you seen?
So probably one of the most common pitfalls is people will have that implementer role also be the AI operator role. This happens with a team that's like, oh yeah, we have one AI person, they have maybe an engineering background or something. And it can work. I like to describe these are all hats. So somebody could wear all 3 hats or 2 of the hats. But most likely your implementation person is going to be so in the technical weeds and details that they might miss out on the process and on learning from the team. What does success look like in this process, and getting down to the level of specificity of, do you repeat ideas twice? And like, there's just so much there. And so that's why it's better that these are kind of treated as 2 separate hats and 2 separate roles.
Okay, so let's talk about an AI operator. Let's maybe start with, what kind of person should fill that role?
So I'll also say these are my favorite type of people to hang out with. Not that I don't like the visionaries and the implementation, but I've just found, so anybody who has like a process-oriented mind, maybe has been a project manager. If you use ClickUp and you're like the ClickUp queen or king, like this role, I feel like is built for you if you have an interest in AI, because all of the skills that people don't realize they have around breaking down something complex into multiple steps in a process, or documenting things, or staying organized, like that's exactly what you need to be really good at AI operations in this AI operator role.
I've often found that process-oriented people are quite different from good project leaders. It's almost like process people, they think in continuous cycles. They're very like, they're systems oriented. They're very like dependable. But sometimes, maybe this is just a certain kind of project, you need almost like a SWAT team leader, someone who just like kicks down the door, maybe has no process, and just like does whatever needs to be done to just move that thing forward. But you mentioned both of those, like project manager types and process-oriented people. How do you see that working?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a million flavors of project management, of course, but someone who's going to kick down the door, I feel like that's really more that AI visionary role in the best teams that we've seen. Because, I mean, even just the breaking down the writing and the way that you were describing, that's something that requires a lot of detail, a lot of process-oriented thinking, right? And so something that like we commonly see is that AI operator might be running the projects. If they run into any friction of something getting done, that is also where that visionary can step in and help support or put the priority, or knock down those barriers.
What else can you say about this role? Like even things like, where should they sit in the organization? How should they be compensated? How much authority and autonomy do they need?
there's a couple options for how you structure your AI operator role. Some companies will set it up as its own kind of individual silo, or most likely it's just kind of transforming your current operations or project management team into a couple people that do this. But the reason that it's nice for it to be its own little, I guess silo is not quite the right word, but its own pod.
Kind of like a working group or
working
like
group.
a special projects.
Special forces. Yeah. Because like if once you learn how to do the AI operations process, doing it for the marketing team versus doing it for the sales team versus doing it for maybe the finance team, it's all the same process. It's just different types of processes. And so there's a lot of benefit to having one or a couple centralized people that almost tiger team into the different other teams. So that's one way that we've seen a lot of companies set it up.
So you don't have each department like relearning the same things,
Exactly.
and making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Interesting. And can that special projects team, how do they have the cognitive flexibility to go from function to function to that feels like you would need to either have experience in all those domains or be incredibly open-minded.
Well, I think so this role isn't designing processes from scratch or isn't the one responsible for even coming up with the stuff. We really describe it as like they're the one shepherding the process. So usually in a project, you want to identify who's the subject matter expert that actually does the process, or maybe it's 10 people that do the process. And so those are the 10 subject matter experts. And so this role, the AI operator, what they do is they spend a lot of time like interviewing and asking follow-up questions and mapping out what the team is currently doing. And in that case, it's actually an advantage to be somebody that doesn't know that process, because you're going to ask better questions and you're going to know what's not clear enough for you to follow. And if you can't follow it, the AI is probably not going to be able to follow it either.
Fascinating.
So it becomes this really powerful role, because then once somebody gets good at this, or a team gets good at this AI operation stuff, they can make impact across the whole organization.
Yeah. So then that makes me think they need to be well compensated. They need to have respect and authority and all those things.
Yeah. So one of the things I love is how many of our clients, the AI operator that we started working with and training, multiple of them have gotten promotions, and they're now the director of a team. They have other AI operators they're training up underneath them. I kind of feel like this is, again, if you're process oriented, like project manager type, likes AI, this is like your moment to shine, because this is such a needed skill.
Wow.
And produces so much ROI once a company set it up. So
Is there anything else you would ask? Like, I imagine someone watching this video, they're like, am I that kind of person? Is this my moment? Like, is there any other criteria or qualifications or even just like personality traits that you think are important?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people think they need to be technical to do this. And you really don't, because you can do AI operations with just prompts. So I feel like that's where people get stuck a little bit, is that they're not technical or not tech savvy enough. A funny one we get is, when do I ask for the raise?
What do
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think after you do a couple of projects and you can map out the ROI of what you're creating, the ROI for AI is really high when you get to do processes like this. So it becomes really easy to say, I'm going to keep doing this for the company. So we should talk about how I can, be compensated for that.
That's how business owners think. Just what's the ROI? I don't need to know anything else. If it's positive, if it's high.
Yeah, they're like, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And you've mentioned to me that the AI exchange has kind of pivoted from like anyone interested in AI to this kind of person, right? What had you make that change?
So we started the AI exchange. It was technically a website up before ChatGPT launched. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't
That's
that wild?
awesome. That's real street cred.
Yeah. I have a lot of things that we were doing just a couple months before ChatGPT, and I promise I had no insider information. At first, we really just wanted to create a space for everybody who was really early in AI and to do that knowledge sharing. And there was just a lot of like foundational concepts that we wanted to help seed into the community. And so that's what that how it started. What's been amazing is how many people were in that community and have gone on to do very different things across the space, building AI products, a lot of AI consultants, all this stuff. But we first started calling what we were focusing on AI operations in like March of 2023. It's also still pretty early.
Yeah.
But I will be honest, with everything being so new, sometimes it's hard to know that you're really sure about something until you've been noodling on it for a while.
Big time.
So I feel like we've just started to really, really be like, cool, we're going to officially consider this AI operations, officially consider this AI operator role and stuff over the last like 6 to 9 months.
I think it's just, by the way, incredibly smart. Like everything, I'm learning this in my own business, the importance of the ICP, the ideal customer profile. That it's just like everything tells you where to focus. It's so much more profitable, so much more, like it's so much less demanding on your time because you can just focus. Like, I think that's a brilliant move. It sounds like that's going to be the most important role, one of the most important roles in the coming AI wave. I approve. Even though I'm not that really role, I think I'm probably more the visionary, but like the second that we have that person, I'm going to send them there. And I love that there's an existing resource, an existing community of similar people for them to talk to.
Yeah. I mean, we want every company to have an AI operator.
At least one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Actually, that's an interesting question. Where do you see this ending up? Just one AI operator for an entire organization? Won't every team and department need one?
So I love the question. The thing that I think, again, there's so many important pieces of being, let's even just name it, the AI first organization, the ones that are leaning into AI operations and doing a lot of AI. There's so many different roles you need. We've mentioned briefly the subject matter experts. I actually think that if you were to take every person on your team and make them become AI operators, you miss out on those people becoming even more subject matter experts in their zone of genius.
Interesting.
Right? So somebody is extremely good at content. Make them and give them the space to go be even better at content. Right? And then they can work with an AI operator to codify the expertise and the stuff that they've created. And then they can have more free time to go work on the next and bigger things in content, develop their expertise even more. And it kind of becomes this cycle that you miss out on if you have one person codifying stuff for themselves.
Oh, interesting. Because you don't want a company that's just all AI experts, but they don't know anything else.
Right.
Like there's always going to be a subject matter, some connection to outside reality that you need to know about.
Yeah. Otherwise, what are you teaching the AI? You know? Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess maybe if you wanted an AI operator on a team, that should probably be an AI agent or something itself at some point, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of these roles are also going to evolve a lot as, I mean, the AI operator can make an AI agent that does AI operations. And, like there's a lot of meta stuff there.
Endlessly recursive.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about the who you want on your team, how you want that team structured, etc. Let's talk about now, okay, let's say that there's a company, let's say a mid-sized company, they've identified those 3 people at least, or at least, their current versions of those roles. And they're like, okay, we're ready to go. How do we AIify, I think is the term you've used, our processes? Like, where do you even start?
Yeah. So through a lot of trial and error, we have found that if you do these 5 steps on repeat, you will be able to get AI to do your processes. Not saying it's the only way to do it, but I found it's a pretty reliable way to just start cranking this stuff out. We call those 5 steps our craft cycles, which C stands for getting a clear picture up front. R stands for taking that clear picture, making it a realistic design.
A clear picture of a single process.
Of a process, yeah.
And then a realistic design of that single process.
Of that process. Unless, and we can dig into this more, you might find your process is actually a really big process and there's a lot of complexity. So what might be realistic is to do a piece of that. Yeah.
Okay. So a single process from beginning to end or a piece of a process.
Yeah. And if you do this kind of planning up front before you jump into using AI for stuff, then you're going to have a much higher success rate of getting the AI to even do those things. Yeah, so once you have a clear picture and then you have a realistic design, the A in the craft cycle stands for AIify. So this is where you actually do the building and the implementation. And then the F stands for feedback. And this is the coolest part. This is my favorite part. It's your time to shine because the feedback is really where you get the AI to be really great at stuff. Then the T is the team rollout stage. And what we've learned is even if you're building a process for an entire team, being really cognizant of getting at least an MVP or first version built first before you try to go roll it out to a whole team, you'll have a lot higher success rate because then you can improve and iterate on people's feedback instead of needing to be slow through the whole process. So we keep that for the last step. But yeah.
Did you use AI to come up with the CRAFT acronym?
Of course I did.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
makes complete sense.
Well, and the funniest thing is the realistic design one was the hardest to come up with because we were like, it's the design, it's the outline, it's all the stuff. And then we looked at how we do it and we actually usually like narrow in what we're trying to work on into something that feels realistic. And so that's what we were like, oh, it's a realistic design, not just this crazy design you have in your head. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I just think I want to like pause here. This is so incredibly valuable because it's like a roadmap that you're giving to AIify to add AI into your operations, but then it's like a loop also because you keep going through it and you start with one and then you do a group and then you do many and eventually do you just do every process in your organization?
I mean, yeah.
That's the potential.
That's the potential. And it's why it's a cycle. So we talk about this as it's continuous development and continuous improvement. And, your business and the work you do is always changing. And so by doing it in a cycle, you can kind of keep up with that change as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like 3 or 4 or 5 part frameworks, I think, run the world. Until something is in some number part framework, it's like, okay, you're just like telling me a word cloud,
Yeah.
So when you work with companies as part of Divvy Up, what percentage of them are you just running through, not just, but like, is craft a prerequisite? Is it the first thing you do with every client or is it just like some of them?
Every single client we put through the craft process. And in our first call with them, we say, we're going to run this alongside you at first. But our goal is that you guys can start running this internally yourself and we'll be running alongside you. And so, yeah, that first craft cycle is our most important thing where we teach everybody how it all works. Because in the second one, it feels familiar, even if we're doing an entirely new process.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk a bit about these letters. So what does it look like to develop? Is the clear picture of the current process before AI?
So it depends. Sometimes you want AI to do the process the way it's currently being done. That's always a safe place to start. But if you already in your head have ideas of what you want the AI to do, or my favorite question is, if you had unlimited time in that process, what would you have the AI doing? All of that should be answered up front to get a really clear picture of like, what's the goal here? Some of the things we recommend people do are turning on Zoom and recording it and then putting that transcript into ChatGPT after. Where on that Zoom call, you're basically just walking through that process and you're asking each other questions about all of the steps. You can get a very clear picture of what a process is that way.
And would you recommend, do you have the AI operator interview the subject matter expert on Zoom?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so they have someone to interact with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Makes complete sense. And so you dump that all into, because it's going to be a bit messy. So you dump it in the ChatGPT or some model and ask it to just turn it into a checklist or a process?
Yeah, process. If you want to use the word SOP, standard operating procedure, ChatGPT knows what that is really well.
Okay.
We call ours AI playbooks, but it's all the same thing. You just want it to be, here's the steps that this process is. Yeah.
Okay. So then there's realistic design. And do you have that step because people tend to come up with unrealistic initial designs?
How could you guess? Yeah. Well, and it's so tempting to be like, this process is 10 steps. We must do all 10 steps with AI. And you can get really stuck if you have that binary thinking that way, because sometimes if you just got step 2 and 3 done by AI, that's already going to start unlocking value or time for your team. And then you can go back through another craft cycle and work on step 4 and 5, or kind of just keep going that way. And so we really coach our clients that the goal is to get through the craft cycles pretty quickly, so you can keep unlocking value and keep unlocking time.
Instead of getting bogged down in like a 6-month craft cycle that just is bogged down in bureaucratic stuff.
Totally, because there's also risk that it doesn't work at the end.
Yeah.
And then you've spent 6 months when it could have been 6 days or 6 hours,
Right.
So getting to where you have a more realistic first chunk.
Amazing. Okay. So sort of scaling it down, scoping it right, maybe making an MVP. And then let's say now you've done all that. How do you recommend they approach AIification?
So totally depends on your level of comfort with AI and automation tools and stuff. I'd say at a minimum, you can do this with writing prompts for each step in that process. And you're already doing this work of AIifying, whatever that process is. If you write really good prompts and they work really well, then it's pretty manageable to take those and plug them into a tool like Zapier, or learn how to add them into automations. One of my favorite things about YouTube is there's so many tutorials these days on how to take your ChatGPT prompts and put them into some of these tools.
Yeah.
And so if you do that, then your process can be run by AI automatically. And then as you get a more technical, or you have kind of access to more tools, or honestly, as the tools get easier, you can use things like AI agents or other more advanced AI stuff in that process.
That's so interesting. So something like Zapier, is that your go-to tool for like the actual execution of an SOP? Or is it just the easiest, like the first one you try?
So we use a variety of tools, and actually most of our AI stuff is built in code, kind of a nerdy side.
Okay.
But we use Zapier a lot as like the connective glue. Or if we're sometimes internally, we just want to do craft cycles to get things done, and we don't want to do a very technical setup. So we'll just do that prompt method, or we'll do putting it in Zapier. But yeah,
It's like a good kind of test of a process, right?
Yeah.
And then you run up against limits, and you're like, okay, we have to move this to custom code.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So let's say that succeeds. You're like, this is the value. You've proven it on your first test process. Now it's time for the feedback, which you said is the most exciting, fun part.
Yeah.
Why is that the most fun part?
Because I feel like, at least for me, and I feel like people who really like this AI operator role, it's like it's so clear whether the AI understood your instructions or not,
Yeah.
You write the prompt, spits it out, and then you're like, oh, it's writing in bullet points and I wanted paragraphs, right? And so you just have all these little things that you start seeing now that it's working. And the biggest hack is if you can learn to take that feedback, the things that you notice, and you actually go back into your original prompt and you edit your prompt and then run it again.
Yes.
And see if it stops doing that bad behavior.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're going to have AIs that are really good at what you want, just by kind of giving it that feedback and going through that cycle.
I agree. This is, I don't know if I would say fun, but I would say for me, but I think it's so critical. It's so important. I found this with my experimentation with writing is, for example, it's amazing how I think my like master prompt, my context for like basically my AI style guide is like 21,000 words, which I've developed iteratively. And I put that in and I say, make a piece of writing. But then I say, now judge your own writing according to these criteria, even if those criteria are already in the original like master prompt, the original context. It finds really clear improvements, makes those improvements. So even with me practically out of the loop, except saying, check yourself, why is that even? Like, why can't it just create those results in the first place? Why does it need to check its own work?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. And it kind of depends on the use case. In this one, it's probably that the AI is trying to do a lot in one first go.
Yeah.
And so then when you give it a more focused task as that second one, then it's able to do it with a higher precision.
Oh
But
my gosh, I think that's exactly what it is.
yeah, but you never would have been able to do that if you weren't able to define the feedback that you wanted to give the AI in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that starts to be the risk with too much upfront context is it can't prioritize, which is it's not even a like information science. No, it is an information science problem. It's not even like a technical limitation. It's that you literally, like according to the laws of information and physics, can't equally prioritize 100 things. It's like mathematically impossible.
I describe it like it's if you were to train someone, you just gave them like a giant 400-page book
Yeah.
and said, great, now start doing the job.
Yeah.
And even if you told them, like if they read the book and then they start doing the job, like they have to conjure up exactly what those things were. So again,
Yeah.
just like people, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I find there always needs to be a hierarchy in the document as a whole, in the ordering of headings, within each heading, within each point, the sub bullet points, which you would do with a human too. You need to know any given two guidelines or principles, which one is more important, or in which situation is it more important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild. Okay, so feedback. How do you do also like, is it always simple and obvious to trace a mistake or error in the output back to its origin in the initial context? Like, what if it's unclear? Like, how did it even arrive at that? Like, how are there cases where you don't even know where to go back to or what to change?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. The best you can have is some heuristics. So, like, some of the ones we use are, is this a substance issue or a style issue? So is it saying like totally wrong things, or do I just not like how it's saying it? If it's a style issue, then usually you can fix that with looking at your examples or your response format or any kind of like checklist of an output criteria that that you put into your prompt. But if it's a substance issue, then it's either not understanding your instructions or it's getting confused by the context, or doesn't have enough context. And so sometimes the best thing to do is just delete a bunch of stuff and then kind of try again and isolate the problem from there. But again, that's why I think this whole process gets really fun. But yeah, probably have to be the right type of person to find it that fun.
It strikes me that like existing organizations pre-AI were not good at feedback. Like it's not an existing capability for a lot of organizations and even people. Like people don't do feedback well, giving it, receiving it, implementing it. Do you ever have to like start way upstream and be like, this is what feedback is. This is how you give it.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Cause like, a good example is, if AI writes maybe a email hook for you or a subject line, then you're like, this needs more pizzazz, or this is off brand, or like something that's not, specific enough and actionable. A person would struggle with that as well, unless they know what you mean because of some other like background information that they have. Same thing with AI. We have a couple, again, of things that we coach people through around with like a CAN framework, like can AI actually do anything with this? Again, we could go for 10 hours with frameworks, but, is it clear? The feedback, is it actionable, and is it necessary? Because sometimes, it's like the AI got the period wrong here. And it's like, okay, well, is that necessary? Do you really want to spend the time on those types of things?
it's like diminishing returns.
Yeah, yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. Okay. Let's talk about T, which I'm guessing is the hardest part.
It depends on the team. Yeah.
Team rollout
Team
is
roll.
the T, right?
Yeah. T stands for team rollout. And this is where you want to, up front, especially in that clear picture phase, try to start getting at least a draft idea of how you're going to integrate what you're setting up into the team's workflow, who needs training, who's going to use this, who's going to be reviewing this, kind of answering all those questions. That way, then by the time you're in the team rollout stage, you're kind of putting all of those pieces together. a lot of people will skip this or just kind of assume that this will happen, but you have to be really intentional about, okay, we're gonna have this training, we're gonna have these success metrics, all that stuff. Otherwise, you risk not getting the ROI of what you just spent time setting up.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I can just imagine, or maybe I can't imagine the obstacles and things that happen. So you said you sort of plan out those things when in the earliest stages at the CNR, or once the whole thing's been validated, then do you sit down and like, okay, how are we going to create a rollout plan?
So we usually start talking about it in the clear picture phase. For example, the subject matter expert that you interview is probably going to be the person using it or one of the people using it. But then we make the final plan on the team rollout, because if you make that plan too early, you just might not know enough about what you actually set up. But you can get really complicated with all this stuff. You can also be really simple. Like if this is a process that's in your task management tool already, like every Tuesday you write this newsletter and here's the ClickUp task or Asana task for it. Team rollout could be as simple as putting a little visual indicator. Remember, we use AI for this, and then linking the AI process that you just set up in that template, so that anytime that task comes up, it's a reminder that we have this process. So there can be really simple things like that.
Oh, interesting. Or like a recurring calendar entry that has in the notes or in the location a link to the SOP.
Totally. Yeah, like habit stacking, right? Like anything you're currently doing, how do you just have that be the trigger for remembering that you can now use AI for that next step?
Interesting. So that's at a individual level. What are the what are the issues? I'm just trying to imagine rolling out like a completely new way of working to like a sizable team. Are there like revolts? Like what's the psychology and the culture clash? I'm assuming it's a clash. Maybe there's times when it's not that happens.
So honestly, one of my favorite parts about the fact this is a cycle, and if you're doing it the way we try to do it, you're going after small chunks at a time. It feels more like a gradual ramp up instead of a like overnight we just changed everything.
Okay.
And so even just giving the team, again, if there's 10 steps in a process, you use AI for 2 of them, you get the team using those 2. They start giving feedback on that. They also then feel bought in as you start adding AI to more and more of those steps.
Okay.
So it really helps. Yeah.
Oh, so the gradual rollout is not just because you don't know what you're doing. It's to give them time to adapt and come along with it.
Yeah. And you're going to learn so much from getting it into people's hands as well. And those might be things that you try to put in the next craft cycle, right? Improvements to the process you just set up.
What about if, say, the introduction of even a single process results in someone losing their job?
So, I mean, it's the question of the century, I feel like. The way that we talk to our clients about it is we think it's really short-term thinking to think about AI replacing people. Because if you have a team of 50 people with AIs versus a team of 50 people that went down to 10 people with those AIs, the 50 people are going to outcompete the 10 people, because you have like we still need people to innovate, to drive things, to be those experts, to do human connection based stuff. Like, yeah, for most businesses, it's very short term thinking to think of it as like a trade out for
As
people.
like a cost cutting. Oh, just cut to the bone.
Yeah. A race to the bottom, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been incredibly helpful. I mean, this is literally a class. This is a mini course on AI integration. So thank you. One of the kind of zooming out for a second, one of the most evocative and interesting phrases that you mentioned this weekend was unlimited time. What is unlimited time about?
So I think we're entering a new era where time is just no longer going to be the bottleneck, because once you define what you want AI to do, it can go do it. And so you don't have to spend the time doing that. So you just have this like potentially abundant resource of time, right? Especially as you do more and more of these processes. And so we really challenge, especially our clients, to like think about that. When you think about your business and the things that you're investing in, the processes that we're setting up, like what would you be doing if you had unlimited time? And those are a lot of the things that we should be going after. But it's just this cycle that I think is going to change the way that we work and how business works way more than people expect.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's everything we do and think and all our decisions are made in the context of time scarcity, right? It's like the fundamental reality, almost more than space, because space you can move around, you can build things, whatever, but like time marches on. It marches on. You can't, with no amount of money, can buy even 1 second. So the billionaire has the same time constraints as anyone else. So how do you even, is this just an exercise in pure imagination? Like it's almost too, it's such a big question that it's hard to answer. Like, how do you think about your own life? What would you, Rachel, do with unlimited time?
Yeah. I mean, the first and easiest thing is looking at the to-do list you never get to, right? But I think there's even smaller things in our day-to-day. A thought experiment is, what's something you did once for this type of project that you wish you had the time to do every time, but you don't? Or what's something you did once for this client that was paying you a lot of money that you wish you could do for every client, but you don't? Because if you're not the one using AI to go after doing those things, someone else is going to. And that's this like cycle that, yeah, you want to be on the edge of.
Oh, that's so good. So you're almost thinking of like ideal scenarios or what's the best case scenario or the best it's ever been. Because the best it could be is almost too hard to imagine, but like you can look to the past basically to find examples of excellence, examples of like insane attention to detail, examples that were isolated then, but now can be replicated.
Yeah.
Is that kind of?
Yeah. And then also kind of similar to delegating work to someone else or managing or building a team. Oftentimes the experience is once someone else is doing it, you have a zoomed out perspective and you can see new and better things and ways to improve it because you're not in the weeds. Right? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh my gosh, every week, every month.
So like that's the same thing with AI is once you set it up and you get AI to start doing something and you're not in the weeds anymore, you also get a bigger perspective where you can think about now ways to improve it or things to add to it.
Whoa.
And that's why I call it a cycle, right? Because the more time you unlock, the more time you're going to unlock, and the more time you're going to unlock because you have the time to think about what's there to unlock next.
What's so funny is everything you just said reminds me of being an entrepreneur, having a vision, and being more imaginative about the future, elevating your perspective, delegating what you shouldn't be doing. It's almost like I wonder if everyone is going to become a mini entrepreneur or a mini creator or a mini visionary or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just like managing people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how can people follow you if they want to learn more about you, your work, purchase something from you, join your community? Where are the places they can go?
Yeah. So if you're an aspiring AI operator or anything that we talked about today sounds fun to you, I'd love for you to check out the AI Exchange. We have a free newsletter that, we try to share perspectives and put a lot of free resources out there. So would love for you guys to check it out. I also create a lot of content on all sorts of platforms. LinkedIn is one of my main ones right now. So Rachel Woods and the AI Exchange are the two things you can Google to find our stuff.
Okay. And I'm curious about Divvy Up. If there was a business owner, let's say, or an executive watching this, and they wanted to know, am I the kind of organization or the kind of person that would be a good fit for Divvy Up? Like, how do you qualify the right kind of client?
Yeah. So one thing is we work with small and medium businesses. So if you're an enterprise, we can give you some good resources, but our focus is really enabling entrepreneurs at that size. And we work a lot with service businesses, usually are very time constrained and wish they had unlimited time. But if anything we talked about sounds interesting, you can reach out and we're happy to either help if we can or point you to someone who can.
You have a process for sort of telling them, determining whether they're a good fit for you or not?
Yeah. If you go on our website, divvyupagency.com, we'll ask you some questions and then we can point you in the right direction.
Is AI involved in this?
Of course.
And so one random thing that I'm curious about is, what is the bottleneck in the growth of that agency currently? Like, what is keeping it, like, what is the bottleneck to its growth? do you think?
I mean, it's a great question. We joke we continuously hire AIs for stuff I mean, everything around the business. There's a part where it's just a matter of time of us building out our own stuff. But I think for me, something we think about a lot is like human to human connection is really important in that service. Because we also recognize we're shepherding people along a path that can feel uncomfortable at times. And that's the thing that AI can't do yet. And I think probably we're a very long ways, if ever, from AI doing that. So yeah, the human piece.
Okay, interesting. As ever. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was very fun.